Hello, YouTube! Grab your 10mm wands, raise them up, because class is in session. Alright, so we are working on Aaron's bike tonight. This beautiful piece of art. Okay? And one of the things we were working on first is there is no spark. Okay? So there's no spark, and I want to talk to you guys a lot about ignition systems. Now, I do have my ignition talk videos and all that, and there's so much information that keeps coming my way, and people with their techniques, and everybody's like, oh, but Kevin does it this way. Well, that way didn't work out for me. I couldn't do it his way, and blah, 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 and I don't even know how he came up with that. I'll tell you how I come up with all my ways. I read the book. Simple. Okay? These bikes have been around for a very long time. There are multiple different ways of doing things, and everybody has a technique. And it's cool. If it works for you, it works for you. But I'm going to teach you guys the right way, the book way. Okay? That's what we're going to do on this channel. Learning channel, guys. So, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about how this works. And my feeling on it is the more you know, the better off you'll be. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some of the components and how they work. This is a flywheel. This flywheel has multiple different jobs. And in fact, a really cool job that this does that I'm not going to talk about tonight, I will be doing a video on, and how this what this is originally for, and how this really does do amazing stuff for this bike. But before we do that, we're going to get into the ignition. So we're going to flip it over to this end. Alright, so this is an older one. This is going to be confusing for you guys because a lot of you guys have, the flywheel has 3 magnets, not 6. But I'm going to explain to you guys why and how. Okay? So, there are 3 poles, and technically all you need is 3 magnets. So, coincidentally, 2 of these magnets right here, and 2, and then 2. So there's 6 in there total. Those 2 align with these 2 poles. Now if you have a 6 magnet, you will find that the magnet is so big it covers both poles at once. Alright, you follow what I'm saying here? So they just took your big magnet and broke it up into 6. That's how it works. It covers this length right here, this distance. This distance. Alright, so that's how that is. So these 2 poles right here, these 2 magnets, share these 2 posts. Same as if you had the 1 magnet would share one of these whole coils. Now, there are a couple of other components to this, though the weight of it, but that has nothing to do with the ignition. But the cam is a big thing. So this cam right here, it's not like a cam, it's perfectly round. No, it's not perfectly round. It actually looks like an egg. So if you look, I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but right here is a high spot. Okay? That high spot is what rides right here and opens and closes the points. So as this thing spins around, it's opening and closing the points, just like that. Okay? So you have 2 coils with big windings and 1 with small windings. What's a winding? A winding is literally how it sounds. It's a wire that's wound around these 2 iron cores. So the core is this part that's bolted down, and then it's wrapped around, and then you can see this right here, these like a tannish colored things. These are insulators. Okay? These stop the windings from grounding out, and then of course there is a ground strap right there. So these 2 coils right here are for your lights and have absolutely nothing to do with your ignition. All that magic happens over here on this side. Okay? So you have your condenser, which is like a capacitor, and then you have your points, and then you have your charge coil. So what happens is this charges the capacitor. When the points open, it releases the capacitor voltage up the wire, up the black wire, and fires the ignition coil. Okay? Where this coil has two coils inside of it, a primary and a secondary inside here, takes that little voltage and multiplies it by like 10,000 times, okay? So 6 volts go into that and like 20,000 volts come out of it, okay? Low amperage, but 20,000 volts of electricity shoot out of that HT wire right here. This is HT, called for high tension, all right? And that's where all the voltage is. So it has enough power coming through this right here to jump the bridge on the spark plug. So it's a real simple system. This right here, the magic happens not when they touch, but when they open, okay? This creates the electricity, charges the capacitor. When this opens up like that, it fires the plug. That's simple, okay? So it's this, another name for a point. So I want you guys to think of this as a switch. This is just on, off, on, off, on, off, okay? It's a switch. That's all it is. But there is a lot of controversy on how to adjust and set up this particular style magneto, and it's really a simple system. I mean, it's really not complicated when you've been dealing with them as long as I have, so I understand a lot of you guys have not, and that's why I'm doing this video, to share my information with you. Now, it's a lot to take in, so I'm going to go over things a couple times, because if you repeat something, it becomes a habit and it gets stuck in your head. Also, I encourage you guys to pause the video, go back, watch it again, and if you guys have questions or comments, please put them in the comment section down below, because if you're thinking it's someone else, and this is a learning channel, no stupid questions. We don't believe in stupid questions. If you have a question, please take the time and ask it, because that's what I'm here for. I'm here to answer your questions on these. That's why I'm doing these videos. Okay, this is a learning channel. All right, so we're going to move on to testing, okay? How do I test this? How do we go about doing that? You know, I encourage everybody who owns a bike. I don't care if it is this beautiful piece of machinery. I don't care if it's a Suzuki. I don't care if it's a Yamaha. I don't care if it's a KD. I don't care if it's a KX. I don't care what it is. Always buy your manual. There is nothing more better than have it. See, I'm your technician. I'm working with you guys, teaching you guys these things. All the information for these bikes are right in the manual. Where do you get these manuals? I got this one right here. This is a climber. Take a moment. A climber manual. Okay. And it covers from 80 to 350 cc rotary valve, 1966 to 2001. Alright. You're covered. That covers pretty much everything we work on this channel, except for the Yamahas and Suzukis. So that's what I do when I get a bike. First thing I do, I hit the Google machine and order myself up one of those on the eBay, okay, or Amazon, or Barnes & Noble, or any place that sells books. You can get one of these manuals. Alright, let's get into testing. Well, but before I do, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon, so when I post a video, you guys get, and do me a favor, guys, if you guys could share the channel with people, your friends who may like this type of thing, that would help us grow as well. So let's get you guys in stand and let's get crack-a-lacking. There is an absolute a lot of information to take in on this tonight, guys. A lot. So much so, it's crazy, alright? But we're going to get into it. I wanted to talk to you guys about how this charges, okay? I want to talk to you guys about how this charges. Okay, so when this thing spins around, the flywheel spins around, this together is a magneto. So when this flywheel spins around, it creates a magnetic field, okay? That magnetic field creates electricity. That's kind of complicated to explain. Let me show you. I have right here, this is a cell phone charger. You plug it into your USB port, and this right here you put your phone on top of, and it creates a field and charges your battery the same way. Alright, so now you understand what I'm talking about. So we'll try a little bit of association with that one. So that's the best way I can explain field. It creates an electrical field that charges the battery. Now, of course, your phones have to have a receiver magneto built into it to receive that electricity. It's the same way. So in your phone, you'd have a coil that when you put that on top of that not magnetic, but the field will actually charge a coil in there, which will charge your battery. Same thing. Okay, so let's get that flywheel right out of the way. All right, so now the book is what I use, and we're going to check this coil. So this coil right here is called the primary coil. Now, these get confusing because inside your ignition coil has a primary and a secondary winding. Don't get those two confused. This is your primary coil. The ignition coil, the gray one up top, this one right here, this is my test coil, is your secondary coil. Alright? So that's whenever you see in the book primary, secondary, you're like, what the heck does that even mean? Primary, that's your first coil. That's where the electricity is made. And then this coil right here is what discharges. So first, primary, secondary, which is when it exits. Alright, so we are going to work on testing this magneto. Alright, so this is the one that came off this bike. And let's see what the book says. Magneto ignition coil. So in here they call it a magneto because they're referring to this. I'm trying to look at the phone and this. Alright, so the magneto wiring. Alright, so with the magneto wiring disconnected, okay, so what they're talking about is disconnecting the spaghetti wire. You don't have to disconnect all these wires, guys. You only need to disconnect the black wire. So when they're talking about the disconnected magneto, they're not talking about these other ones. That's nothing. Only the black wire. Because remember, these are all for lights and charging. This one right here is the only one for ignition, and both the ignition is separate from the charging and lighting. So these are here, these two 3-volt coils are for your lighting only and charging only. They don't have anything to do with ignition. Separate. Okay? So we are going to block the breaker points open. Okay, so what they're saying is we want to keep those points open so it doesn't go to ground. Alright, so with a piece of paper such as a business card. Alright, that's easy enough. So let me find a quick piece of paper that I can jam a crammer in there. I'm not in a good mood. Just kidding. Okay. Alright, so we got that jammed up in there. So now the contact part, what you're going to do is you're going to see right here where they open right here. You're going to jam them up because you don't want this pole touching this pole because that right there will ground it out. When you put it like this, it keeps it open, and now the ground, it won't be grounded out. Okay, so there we go. Now we're going to take, alright, with a piece of paper such as good. Measure the resistance between the black wire and ground with a low range ohm meter. If resistance is approximately 5 ohms, the coil is good. Okay, so when they say that, it can be anywhere from like 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 5. Anything under 5, it's considered good. Alright, anything over 5, they're considering that bad. Alright, so let's turn on the old multimeter. Okay, hopefully you guys can see that alright. Nope, you can't. Alright, how about now? Can you see now? Good. Let's put this up in the stand here a little bit. Yeah, that's a little better. Yeah, I'm going to move you guys over a little bit so you guys can see just a little bit better. Okay, so what I'm going to do is we blocked it off. We're going to take the black wire out of the spaghetti house. We don't care about the rest of it. It doesn't matter which terminal. Okay? You can use black to black if that's the type of guy you are, or red to black. It don't matter. It doesn't really matter which way you go. Okay? I'm going to find the ground strap here, and I'm going to touch it to here. Maybe on a setting here. They got no connectivity at all. I'm completely dead. These even working? Alright, they are working. I think I found your problem with your bike, Aaron. There's a dead short open. That's a broken wire. Yep, look at that. There's nothing. Okay. Well, that means there's a short in the system somewhere. But before we do that, let's just play around with this a little bit. I don't like to give up too easily. I'm not intimidated like that. Alright, so we can go like this. We're going to put this in here. Show the red. Ground. Yep. No. Alright, so the short is not in the wire. Look at that, alright? So I have it up to there, and I'm touching it to the capacitor right here, and I'm good. But when I touch it to the ground, I get no reading at all. I should have a reading. Doesn't matter which ground I touch it to. So there is a short in the system. So, I don't know where it is. Something's not right. I got a reading to the black wire. So the black wires give me a reading, but coming out of the black wire, okay, which is going to be the coil wire, there's a short on that coil. On that right there. There's an open. Okay. So that's the problem with this bike right here. This has an open coil. Let me show you what it should look like. So this is for a KD80. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to open up the points. We're going to stuff this in here and block it, like so. And then, remember, this test is for testing this coil. We'll grab the wire. Touch it there. Touch it to ground. And we have a reading of 1. That is good. Okay, so we know that this has a good charge coil. Alright, so now we got to find a new Magneto for Aaron's bike that has no short. Now I want to show you guys a little something on these too. Okay, his short is most likely in this connector right here. Alright, it's just a bad connector. But I want to talk to you guys about this anyway. I see a lot of people using screwdrivers stabbed in here to loosen up the flywheel. Okay, when you do that, you could potentially cut one of these copper windings, or distort them in a way where they ground out. Or see these right here? These are insulators. What they're supposed to do is they're supposed to keep these windings from touching the iron core. Okay, that's how the electricity is made. If this touches this, alright, it creates a short, and that's what you'll get for a reading. It'll be blank like that. And you can see right here, there's a ground strap here. There's a ground strap. What's the other one? Right here. So you got 2 ground straps right there. And that terminates the end of it. So you got, that's your ground. That's your positive. Okay? It's real simple. Alright, so we're going to find a Magneto that we think will work in his bike. Give me a moment, or let me go take a look through my plethora of Magnetos, and I'll be right back. Okay. Alright, I got the one from the other night that he had on the bike motor we took apart, that he gave me, the G4, and it actually has the proper wiring for this bike, and will actually work perfectly. And once again, I want to show you guys how nice that solder connection is. Beautiful. Alright, so let's test this coil, this primary right here, and see if we get what we get out of it. Now, either way, we're going to replace the points and condenser on this, okay? Just because, and I want to show you guys how it's done. Alright, so, where'd that piece of paper go? Did I leave that in the points? I did. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to open up the coil, the points, and stuff that in there. You actually can do this with the flywheel on. It is a little trickier though. So if you guys suspect it, you guys can leave that on there. Okay, let's get this thing tested, shall we? Okay, black wire. That right there is always your ignition. Get that out. The rest of them out of there. We don't care about the rest of them. Okay, and there's that black wire lead right there. Boom, boom, boom. I'm not trying to drag out the video, guys. There's a lot to go over, and it's going to be a long video, so I do apologize for that. All right, so I'm terminating it right here in my hand, and then we're going to test the ground. And we have a reading of 1. We are good. It goes to 0, so we are good. We are good. All right, so we have a reading. This has a good coil on it. I think we're all right here. Okay, so now we have a good charge coil, and that is how you test it. 5 ohms, it's good. A lot of people try to undo it from here and test it from here to here. You can do that. It's just a lot harder. You don't need to do that. You don't need to unsolder it. The book clearly lays out how to test these things. And my theory is the faster you can test it, the faster you can fix it. You know what I mean? Alright, so now we have the condenser and the points. That's all that's left. We know that the charge coil is good. Now we have to test the points. We can't test the condenser because we don't have a capacitance tester. And this, it's just not right. It's not 100% right if you use this right here to test it. So, there is really no point, get it? No point, in testing the condenser, because it's cheaper just to go buy the kit and replace the points and condenser at the same time, which is what you're supposed to do anyway. So instead of spending the money, which I've never spent the money, I do not own a capacitor tester or a capacitance, because if I suspect it, meaning no ignition, I just replace the points and condenser. They're cheap enough, they're easy enough to do, and that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's get into this. Alright, so we got that part all done, and then you can, let's see here, disconnect the ground wire between the ignition coil and the Magneto base, which we did. Okay, in the iron core. So what they're saying here is you can check them, you can measure the resistance between the iron core and the coil insulation resistance. Yeah, we already did that. It's just another way of doing it. Okay. So, and then down here it gives you the condenser, and it tells you what the microfarad is. Now, what is microfarad? I'll tell you what that is. Microfarad is how this capacitor gets charged. So when the voltage is made up in these coils, or in the ignition coil, the primary, it charges this. The microfarad is the time that it takes to charge and discharge. Alright? That's how it's measured. It's called microfarad. Alright? And if you do have a capacitor tester or a microfarad tester, or however you want to word that, it should be 0.18 to 0.25 microfarad. Okay? It's real simple. And they are 6 volt positive lead. Okay. Alright. So we got that part underway. Now, we want to check points. Okay? So, how do you tell if your points are good, bad, or ugly? Alright, I'm going to show you that right now. So we're going to take this point set off, and to do that, it's a 5.5 millimeter or a 7/32. I got these cool Craftsman little wrenches. One's a 5.5, not wrong side here, like that. It's easier when it's on the bike, okay? Alright, let's get a screwdriver and get these points off. Push down firmly and turn. Yeah, points are on there way too tight. Let me go get a flathead screwdriver. Okay. And I also want to say something too. There is no part on these bikes that require Loctite. Remember that. Okay, let me try the Phillips first. A number 2 Phillips. A little longer. No. Okay, I'll go with the flathead. He's probably never been off before. No. Okay. Alright, so that right there is a stuck screw. So we're going to give it a little bit of love. Okay. All right. Wood. Yeah. It's all in the technique, guys. All in the technique. Now, I don't know if you guys noticed or not, I just loosened it up. See how it slides out? It does the same thing going in. Alright, so I'm going to put that off to the side. And we're going to be talking about just our points. Okay? Now, these points can get corroded. You can see right there. See the ash that's on them? Alright, so the capacitor also dampens that. It takes the voltage. So when this thing closes, the spark is less. Because as it's making voltage and this thing touches, there's a little spark right that happens, and that creates ash. So if you see a lot of buildup of, like, I mean, I'm talking like it'll look like a little pyramid in the middle, that's a sign of a bad capacitor. Okay, a bad capacitor will cause this thing to arc. So if you're looking at your points and you're seeing this psh, psh, bright spark, that's a bad capacitor. Okay, or condenser, if you will. Alright, so what we're going to do, and I want to show you guys all the parts. This is a very complicated little switch, and I'm going to, almost sound like I said something else there, didn't it? But I'm going to show you guys all the components to this, okay? This strap right here is not just a spring. It is also the terminal. It is also what carries the power. Now, on here, you'll see right here, see this brown circle? Actually, let me just take it apart and I'll show it to you. I'm going to lay this whole thing out for you, so you guys get the whole gist of the whole thing. Show you guys the most important parts of this. As long as they're in the proper order, I'll show it to you. Okay. These three items right here are probably the most important part of the points. These are the insulators. These right here basically stop the connectivity. So right now, with this strap touching this base, these points right here will not work, because now it's shorted out. We just created a dead short. That's now, this is a positive terminal right here, and it just touched ground. So this right here will kill the whole ignition. This thing will not start. It will not spark. Even if these are brand spanking new points, this will not work. Okay, you have to have the insulator. The insulator goes in between them and keeps it up a little bit. It separates. These right here separate the metal power strap from the ground. Okay, and they go together real simple. One of these insulator rings goes in between like that. Okay, so now this spring positive strap can't touch the negative ground mount. Okay, this goes in the center. This right here is what keeps the screw from touching. Okay, then you have another ring that goes on the outside at the bottom. So what you should have is the three-piece insulator isolating the ground from this positive strap. Then you have your bolt right here with the flat washer, just like that. You have your other flat washer. You have your lock washer right there, and then of course the nut. Okay, So how to tell if your points are good. I'm going to show you a couple of techniques. So you have them in your hand like this. You can buy one of these little continuity testers. All this is, it has a battery. I'll show you to you real quick. It's called a continuity tester. And it has a AAA battery. Goes in this, so it's its own power. This is not a test light, guys. You can't use this for checking light bulb, not light bulbs, seeing if you have power. If you put power to this, you'll short it out. Okay? When the two terminals touch, it lights up. See how it lights up right there? So what you can do is you can take this right here, you clamp it onto your nut, like that. That didn't sound right, but you guys get the idea. And then you touch it to ground. See how it's not lighting up? Right there. That's good. That's actually, that's bad. That's bad points right there. Okay, because that right there should be lighting up. So my points are dirty. If your points are, see right here, I got power right here, but I have nothing on this side. So that means my points are dirty. So when I file the points here, if I file the points, I should get, you should see light. Hold on one second. Okay. That's awesome. I found a bad set of points here. Okay, so if I touch it to here, I got no light. Okay, and that's what the point's close. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this file. Let's see if we can file them. And now we have power. See? I just cleaned these points. These points right here will actually run the bike right now if I wanted to. But we're not going to use these points. So if I put these points in the machine right now, it will run. But a second ago, it wouldn't. Because there was corrosion on these right here, on the two contact parts. And there's one other part too. Sometimes, no matter how clean you clean the points, they still don't work. And they're still grounded out. And I'm going to tell you guys why. See this pin right here in the middle? You can actually see there's a... Oh, actually, you can see it really good right here. There's an insulator right there. But sometimes rust and corrosion build up in there. And it makes a contact between this pin and this metal right here. This pin and this right here cannot touch. That's an insulator in there. So there's an insulator on that pin. You can see the other one down bottom here. So again, insulator there and one right there. If those insulators wear out, now this right here, it will actually cause your bike to run rough because it'll be worn out. But it will touch and it will short the whole thing out. So the light won't flow. There'll be no flow. So you have insulators here too. So just because it's solid here and you clean the points, if it doesn't work, your problem could be on this pin. Alright. I know, so it's a lot of information, guys. I know. I'm just going over all the scenarios with you guys. Everything. I want you guys to know everything. Brand new set of points right here. Same thing. Clamp it on. Right now I should have power. Light, yep, I do. And then when I open up the points, I'm going to see if I can open them up while I'm on here. Okay, watch. Right now it's light. See that? Okay, so that's how that works. These are a good set of points. Well, they better be the brand new. Alright, so we got new points. And let's get them installed on that plate. Okay, so I got the... Let me move you guys back here so you guys can see what I'm doing. Alright, so we're going to do this like this. Here is the nut. Just going to loosen it up just a little bit. I'm going to put the terminal on. It's going to go between the insulator and the washer. It should go in the direction of whole thing. You don't have to gorilla tighten these, you just gotta make them snug. Then you have that pin right there, goes in that hole right there. That is your pivot adjustment pin. Okay, should slide right in like so. And right here, you gotta be careful with this because I see this a lot. Alright, let me show you. Do you see this terminal right here? You gotta make sure it does not hit this core. Because if this all the way back like that, it could touch down bottom in the screw. And then that right there would cause a dead short as well. Alright? So, I just grabbed, here's this old screw right here that was stripped out. We're not going to use that. We're going to use a newer screw from the original ones that were on his bike. Okay. I'm just screwing it down right now. Alright. And I don't want to get it too tight, so I just want to make it so it just moves. The whole thing. Yeah, I don't know if you guys know. See that little notch right there? That is so you can open and close your points. That's your fulcrum for doing that. A lot of people don't know what that cutout is. Like, why is there a cutout right there? That's for a flathead screwdriver to move your points. And it makes it a little easier when you're trying to adjust it. Hold the feeler gauge, you can on top with the points. Okay, so we got that part done. Next thing we have to do is undo the condenser. You don't want to cut the wires. What you're going to do is I use a flathead screwdriver on one of the flaps right here. And I just move right out of my way. Boom. Don't be afraid of it. You just gotta pry it up. And do not stab these. Done that like twice already today. Not today, but in my time. Okay. Basically just freeing it all up first. Move them right out of the way. Sometimes they wrap them around. They're pretty good, some of them. Okay, now it's out of my way. And now you can see how there are 3 wires right there. Let's get the soldering iron wound up and we'll unsolder those wires. There are different types of soldering irons. This is a Craftsman. This is the one that I use. This right here is a 150 to 230 watts. Okay, this thing right here is like 89 watts. And these pencil styles don't do very good on that. You need the induction style. Okay, so let me get a seat and I'll be right back. Alright. Let me show you recording here. Okay, good. Alright, so this part right here is kind of a tricky part and it can be intimidating. Try not to be intimidated, okay? It takes practice like with anything, you know. Get the soldering iron warmed up so it's hot. And you gotta do this by holding the trigger in. I haven't used this thing for a while, so it's gonna take a minute for it to get hot. Put some solder on. There we go. It's starting to get hot. Okay. Well, that one's really on there, huh? Not even melting that solder. Wow. I don't know what kind of solder is on this thing, but it is good solder. As you can see, I can't even get that off with this. I think my soldering iron quit. I'll try to tighten this thing up. It's really weird. I can melt solder with it, but I can't melt this solder. Huh, I wonder what the heck they have on there for solder. Right back. Alright, let's try this out. Kind of a pain in the neck because you got to get that tab up that they're underneath. But once you get that done and you get the solder out, it really just comes down to patience. I'm using what they call a solder wick. This is for desoldering desoldering. So my thing is giving me all kinds of issues tonight. I'm gonna have to get another one. These thing's old. But what you do is you put this on top of it and then you heat it up like this, and it literally wicks the what do you call it there? The solder right into it. It cleans it up like new. For desoldering. Okay. Look, I'll show you. You can see how I took the solder right clear off of it. Now you can see that secondary tab. It just takes time. I mean, I don't do it all the time, but when you do it, that's pretty much it. So I'm going to go ahead and finish unsoldering that, heating that up. I'm going to bend that tab up and we'll replace that condenser. Okay, once you get it hot enough, you'll be able to stick, I use a screwdriver under with a loop and then just kind of pry up on it as you're melting the solder. Then you will have 3 wires, 1, 2, and 3, and they'll be right out of the way. You don't want to cut them. If you cut them, they end up too short, and then you end up in a mess. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of move these out of the way, and then get that bolt out. That's screw. Okay. That condenser is out. Now I just take the new condenser, set the screw in there. If you can use a magnetic screwdriver, it will help you because it's kind of in a tight area. And make sure, very important, and I've seen it done a couple times, so I want to pass it on to you. This wire right here coming up from the charge coil, make sure you don't pinch it. Okay. then just give it a good old snug. Snug-a-rug-a-doo. Now, there are two tabs. There is this tab right here, the long one, and the short one. The long one is for holding the insulation down. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to get this into position that you want. Okay? Hopefully I'm not too much in your way. This is kind of a comprehensive video here, so it's kind of a pain in the neck too. I'm trying to do these, but when you get these in, it's 1, 2, 3. Actually, that will go in there first if it wants. I tried doing them the way they had them in there, but sometimes they don't work like that. Okay, so once you get them into where you want them, it's right in the middle. Always gonna be one. One of these is always gonna be a pain in the neck. Just gotta find out which way they go best, which way they fit. You want to make sure you get 3 wires in there. You should have a black, a blue, and a thin wire. Okay, and they're all going to go into there like that. And then you're going to crimp it down like so. Okay, now see right here, this black margin right here. You do not want to make a bridge connection. So you want to make sure that there is no wires, no bare wires touching that at all. Then if you're okay with that, then you take the secondary strap and you push that down right on top of it. Okay. Okay. Once you get them all squished in there, before you do anything else, what I always do to make sure they're all in there. Okay, so I'm just going to use my continuity tester. Okay, got that, and then make sure I have a connection on my black wire. And I'm good. Okay. Alright, so now everything is touched. Everything's working. We are good to solder. Okay. I am using a flux core thin solder. And on this soldering iron, because it's giving me some issues tonight, I'm just going to have to let that heat up for a moment until I can melt solder on it. You're not going to get it anywhere near the factory, so you can try to, and God bless you if you can, but yeah, unless you're a professional solderer, it's not going to happen. So just do the best you can with what you got. Now I'm putting the iron on top of the tab. Kind of melting the solder right into it. And that, my friends, where are you? Right there, you can see it's all soldered all to pieces right there. And I got this one little piece of slag right here. Just gonna knock that off with my screwdriver. There is nothing touching the outer part. And that's it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna end the video here, and then on the next video we're gonna put it in and set it. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me, and hopefully you guys learned something. And if you guys have any questions, please put them in the box below in the comment section, because there's a lot of information I went over with points, with condensers, soldering, wires, field, all that type of stuff. And now you guys know how to test the primary coil and change the condenser, and what to look for when you're soldering it. Unfortunately, this thing right here, I've had this thing for a very long time, and I think it's just worn out. I'm going to try changing the piece on it, because this thing right here is probably 20-30 years old. I know this thing's early 80s. I could feel it kicking on, but yeah, we'll see how it is. I'll get a new tip for it, and maybe that's the problem. But anyway, guys, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I will talk to you guys later. I'm out. Hey YouTube, how you guys doing tonight? Kevin here, coming at you with another video. This is part 2. Okay, so we are going to mount this on. So we got the new points, which, remember, points are like a switch. That's what they are. They're on and off, on and off, on and off. We tested the primary coil. We know that's good. So realistically, we just have to put this on there and adjust it. That's pretty much all that's left. So the blue wire, you want to make sure goes around the back sides right here of the felt. But let's put this back on and see where we're at. But before I do, please hit that subscribe button and the bell icon, so when I post a video, you guys get it. Let's get you guys in the stand and we'll get crack-a-lacking. Alright, so we get you guys in the stand and we'll get you guys in the position. And so we're going to put the Magneto on. Alright, so okay, and go with the screws. I'm just walking them in, I'm not tightening them down yet. Okay, now they're in and tight. Good and tight. Okay. Then this wire right here gets tucked up here with that grommet. This right here goes right here like so. Alright, that is your neutral safety wire. Want to make sure we get that hooked up. And they kept the same color on those, as they're always green. Okay. And then looks like there's a thing for wiring that goes up through here, and that's the way we're gonna go, if we can. But for, you know what, for right now we're just gonna put this through up here. Okay, we'll just stick that through up there. Okay, now up top right here is a little spot. You can adjust the points in and out. Okay, and that's how you move the point. Let me see if I can blow you guys up a little bit here. You guys can see. Right here is a little window, and on the points there's a little groove, and that's how you adjust them. I'll show you on these old points. So here, these ones that we pulled off. See that little groove right there? My finger is touching, not my thumb, my pointy finger. That right there is right up in there, and you can literally open and close them. Or actually, down is opening, up is closing. Okay? Alright, so we want to take this screwdriver right here, and I just want to put light tension on it. So I should be able to still move. Yep, with a little bit of drag. That's what we want. And then we're going to take the flywheel. And we're going to put this on. Are we forgetting anything? Yes, we are. One of the most critical, important parts to doing any set of points. That felt needs to be lubed. Alright. You can even order new felt if you need to. But I just do this until the whole thing absorbs like a sponge. And I'm using regular motor oil, guys. And this little applicator is a tie-dye shirt thing. Okay. And then I'm going to take a little bead of it. And I'm going to stick it on the cam itself. Just going to rub it around the cam itself. Alright, line up my flywheel. Okay, that is on there. And we're going to torque the flywheel nut to 36 foot-pounds. As it goes together, you have a lock washer that goes on first. And then you have your regular, it's a 14mm nut. And you should be able to screw this on by hand more than 3 turns. Okay? I'm going to go get my tools to do this. Alright, so what I'm going to use is a piston stop right inside the spark plug hole. And that's going to stop the crankshaft from rotating while I torque down the flywheel nut. Screw it in there. This one's got the hose on it. I didn't grab the proper one. Come on, get in there. Okay. Alright, so that's all set there. Never wind these in with an impact gun. I mean, it's alright if you're gonna just do it like for snugging, but don't try tightening it with it. Up there like that. I'm using the old school one, not my digital one, right here. When I'm working on the old bikes, I like to use the older style tools if I can. Okay, now I'm going to torque this down for 36 foot-pounds. Almost. Okay, 36 foot-pounds. Okay, 36 foot-pounds it is. Alright, so we got that all torqued down. That is proper. And take the boot out. Okay. And then we have the arrow, which way it rotates. Okay, so I believe that's the correct way when we pull down the Kickstarter. Yep. Okay. So we're gonna go with their rotation. I think there's might be some rust inside the cylinder because it still does feel a little rough, but nothing crazy. Okay, so now you have your timing marks right here, and up in here there is an adjacent time mark, a match, which is right here. I don't know if you guys can see that or not. I'll shrink you guys down so you can. Hold on 1 second. Just get you guys in a position here. Okay. Okay, so right there, you see the mark. So if you look at that bank, there's no mark. You look at that top one, there's a mark. And then you have a mark on your flywheel. So I'm going to rotate that flywheel until it just matches up with that. And then I can see inside the window there. And then I'm going to set my points to 13 thousandths because the book calls for 12 to 13 thousandths. Alright, now here's where I'm going to stop the video for a second and talk to you guys. Okay, so one of the people that I know had mentioned, how come I don't set my points with a multimeter? And then basically said I'm an idiot for not knowing how to do this. Well, here's why. Because that's not the right way. So, the second the points open, okay, let me explain this to you. I'll go over it. The very second this opens up, well, hold on, let me just tighten this down for a second. The very second this opens up, that's going to read, okay? That's going to read, it's going to say open, and then they're like, oh, lock it down, okay? So, depending upon where the position of the cam is where it's going to open. So, the minute, how would I put this? If you rotate the flywheel, and you do it till when the thing comes on, if there's any delay, it could be too much open or not enough open. Any position in that range right there will cause that to read. The second it touches, then it's not going to read. You follow what I'm saying? So if you're looking for a read till it just touches, you're not setting them properly. Alright, so let me go over that one more time. Right now it's going to read, okay, the minute they touch. That doesn't mean that the gap is correct. Alright, so the minute this opens up, there's going to be no reading right now. If you do it until they just touch, you don't know what part of the cam you're on. You follow what I'm saying? Because there's more than... Let's try to explain to you this way. Alright, this is oval right here. You can see how this part right here, if you guys can see this too well, I'm going to try blowing you up here a little bit. Okay. Let me try this right here. Okay. Do you see right here? There's a margin. This cam goes from here all the way around. From right here to right about here is a flat area. And then it starts to go up. The points can actually, when the points are closed, depending upon what position they're in, they can be already on this step of the cam and still be closed, depending upon where you adjust them to. Which means by the time they get to full open to where they're supposed to be, the gap could be absolutely tremendous. So, that is an incorrect way of doing it. And then one person had mentioned, a different person had mentioned, well, that's called dwell, Kevin. Okay. This plate on these bikes have one setting. You can't rotate the timing, okay? You can't change the timing. It's fixed. So every time the light gun hits the mark on the flywheel, it's going to be firing at the right spot all the time. This ain't like the Suzuki DS80 that I have that you can actually change the timing and see where it's going to fire. You can't. The only adjustment on these plates is right here, this one screw, and that right there is set for your points gap. And your points gap, according to the book, is 0.12, I'm sorry, 12 thousandths to 14 thousandths. Okay, I try to go for 13, right in the middle. All right, and when you do that, you automatically set your dwell. So they figured between 12 and 14 thousandths is enough dwell. What is dwell? Dwell is the amount of time that your points stay open. If you set it with a multimeter and you're somewhere already up on the cam, okay, and then you set it, yeah, your bike will run, but one, you can have poor performance. Two, your dwell will be way off, causing the poor performance, and it could cause backfiring out the exhaust or out the intake. You don't know when it's going to fire because now you just changed that dynamic. You follow what I'm saying? So you change the dwell, you change the time, it's gonna open. All right, and remember, the points don't fire when they close; they fire when they open. So basically, what you're doing is the amount of time that this is open for is the amount of time this right here has to discharge the voltage to go up to the coil. So the shorter the time, this is not going to spark as long, and it's not going to be as advanced as it needs to be. Okay, so you got to keep that in mind. You're messing with your timing when you do it with a multimeter. That's a hot shot basically. It's to get the bike running. You can test your points like I showed you when the points are out. That takes way too long to do them that way. This is a simple system. One screw through the window, adjust them with a feeler gauge with your timing marks lined up. You're done. That's it. Okay? Now you set your timing and your dwell. Okay? When you mess with it, we're doing a multimeter, you're throwing that all off. One of the things I like to do with my feeler gauges is, see this twist nut? Feeler gauges are pretty cheap to buy, and I've got a bunch of them. So what I typically do, I'm not doing it to this one, but typically what I do is I unscrew them and I take out this gauge and then I mark it just for doing points. Okay? Another thing not to be confused about is if you look right here, I don't know if you can see it or not, but we'll try. It says 13 thousandths. You see the writing? No, it's kind of blurry. It's very hard to see because of the lighting. But on here, right there, see where it says 13 thousandths and then 15 millimeters, or 0.015 millimeters. I don't have my glasses on. Okay? Don't get those two numbers confused, because if you go do the other one, you're going to be setting your timing way off. Okay? It goes by thousandths, not millimeters. Alright? That's how we do it here in the US. It goes by thousandths, not millimeters. So I saw a couple of people do that, and it gets a little confusing for them. Like, oh wait a minute, I set that. No, you went to millimeters. You didn't go thousandths. Oh, you know, and that's an honest mistake that happens to all of us. All right, so I actually ended up taking that apart anyway. All right, so basically, always use a clean feeler gauge, and you're gonna stick it in the points gap. The points gap are open right there. Now, we'll get the one that I use. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, so what I have done is I had taken an older one and I cut it in half. And this right here, when you cut them in half, they fit right in there. Boom, just like that. Okay, so that's what the tool looks like right there. That's what I made, and it makes it life, because you can't put this whole thing in there. You just can't, because it's going to want to twist on you. So, and then basically, all you got to do is put that in the gap, right there. The screwdriver up top, rotate it, and then lock the screw. I can't do it with you guys in the way, but that's how you do it. Okay, so you put the feeler gauge right in there, and it should just, when you pull it out, it should just drag. You should feel it, that the point shouldn't snap down. They should be just staying right like that. And when the feeler gauge is in between the 2 points, like this, you should be able to feel both sides. That's it. All right. So at 13 thousandths, I gapped the points. You guys can see that or not, right up in there. And then I cut the feeler gauge to fit, and it goes right up in here, so it just drags. Okay, you can feel it like that. Okay, it doesn't, so you can't really see it with my hand anyway, but let's see here. Can't see what I'm doing here. Okay, all right, so it's like that right there. And then I used the screwdriver up in the top corner there until it just touches, and I turn it. I twist the screwdriver until it just turns, using this little notch right here. Okay, a little notch. Now what you want to do, okay, and I found this is a common problem. So we often put the feeler gauge in here first and then rotate this, And what happens is, instead of this right here riding on the cam, it's floating. So you think you gapped it because you put the gapper in there, the filler gauge, and then you adjust it. That's not how it goes. So you have to literally, you want to push, rotate this counterclockwise. Okay, so this right here is up against the cam, and then as you rotate, it opens it, and your goal is to get that 13 thousandths, and then you lock it down. So you want to rotate it forward. So anyway, that's all you got to do. You want the points to just touch. Okay, all right, so we got the points in, the new condenser, we tested the whole unit. Now let's go, it's already hooked up to the other side. I pushed the wires through already, and then let's go hook it up, let's go plug it in and see if it works. All right, so we got the wiring through here. I just tucked it down through, and we're going to plug this into the coil. So we're going to grab the black wire, and we're going to hook it directly into the coil, no other wire. Okay, and then we're going to try this. Now remember, this is an aftermarket coil, so we don't know what to expect. I know one thing. I don't like how much wire is there. We're going to have to change that a little bit. Okay. Alright. This thing's going to fight me, guys. It's going to fight me. Alright, we'll just try holding it if we can. Oh, you see that? We had spark. Look at this. Watch this. Ready? Alright, I'm going to keep you guys up right there. You see that? We got spark. See if we can do it this way. No, can't do it that way. Trying to think of the best way to do this. Hey, you know what I'll do? Let's disconnect this coil. Let's plug in this one. This is the factory coil setup. It's a little better. A little better. Okay. Plug that into there. Okay, beautiful. Now, hold on 1 second. Okay, now let's try it. Ready? Every time, guys. Every time. Put that like that. Look at that, huh? Thing of beauty. Alright, so we have spark. So, now that we got spark, we're all set for air right now. And then we will put this thing back together on this side. Get a gasket for it. It's missing a gasket. And then, what do you call it there? We'll go from there. So let's see. Put that in there. Tuck that back. And then we got some other stuff to do on this one. Alright, so we got that in. We need a gasket for it, which I do have. I do have the gasket. I had one of these in stock, which is good to have. And then boom. Okay. This gasket is very important. This gasket keeps out water and moisture and condensation and all that stuff. It seals it off, and then this will be all set. So it's very important to have this gasket. This is, if you have points ignition, or actually doesn't matter, you need a gasket there. Okay, so make sure you have a gasket, even if you have to use RTV silicone. Do it, get it done correctly. All right, so that's what I got for you guys for tonight. I thank you guys for watching, hanging out. I do apologize for the length of these videos recently. They are very long, but there's a lot of information on them, and I wanted to make sure that you guys saw that you can easily do this thing with a set of points. You just have to, with filler gauges, you just have to know how to do it. You just got to make sure that when you're gapping it, you're not sticking the filler gauge in here first and then trying to do it. No, you want to open it, you want to put a little bit of tension on it, rotate it counterclockwise so that this right here is on the cam. Once that's on the cam, the gap will open when you rotate it down, like so. And then that's the distance right there. You want to make sure you have a 13 thousand. So it calls for 12 to 14. I always gap them at 13. Then when they wear in, you'll have your 14 and you won't lose any power or any performance. Alright, setting them up with a field gauge, the bike will run great for a little while. It will. It can cause premature wear on your points because the gap is incorrect. And it's not going to wear the points out with a contact. It's going to wear them out down here because now it's going to be kicking it. There's going to be a gap. Alright, especially if you gap the points on the lobe, on the cam itself, and the cam is, you know, not in the right spot, and then the cam goes to the flat side, there's going to be a gap. Then it's going to come up, touch it, open your points, and then do it all again. It's going to be kicking them. So a lot of, that's just not a, I don't like that way. Field gauge is the best way to do it because that also sets your dwell at the same time. This is a dwell meter. I brought this out to show you guys. This is what a dwell meter looks like. And you would set this up on your points and you would take a dwell meter, but this is for an automotive, this is for a car. But you get your RPMs and your volts and your dwell. Okay, so this right here, our bikes, if this would be hooked up to it, would be a 6-volt bike. You'd read your RPMs and your dwell, which you'll see the dwell, which is right here, is how long it's open for. That's the time duration. Okay, you don't need to deal with any of that. You can use a timer light if you want, but we know what we're doing. Use a set of points. It's been that way since these bikes were new. All the technicians do them with points. It's so much quicker. It takes you like 20 minutes if you're going to do it with the point, with the what do you call it there, with the multimeter, because you got to tear apart all the wiring just to get the thing out there to make sure it's making contact. Then you got to put the flywheel back on. I mean, you have to hook it up, then you got to put the flywheel back on and re-torque it. And then when you torque it, okay, it's tapered, so when you snug it up, it's at one position. When you torque it down, it actually moves the flywheel in and changes it once again. That's not designed to do that. Use the field gauges. That's the only best way to do it. Okay, don't use a multimeter, don't use a continuity tester, and don't eyeball it. Use a field gauge. It's easy enough to do. Alright guys, that's it for me for tonight. Thank you for watching, and I will talk to you guys tomorrow. I'm out.